join us online today. If Doug Jensen's on there.
Okay, welcome back. We're into our 11 o'clock session. Start off, Public Works.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mike Moss, Public Services Director. The very first time we have, as long as Doug's online, is the Behavioral Health Organization office space request. They're looking for having space in or additional space inside the jail. And there's some questions between the PA's office and I believe the Commissioner's office and our office, exactly what we could do for that department or for that agency to be inside there. And I think Doug had some thoughts and opinions. So I was hoping he'd be online to join us today.
Okay.
Don't see him.
So it's an interesting situation. You may recall that as the state made changes in the BHO organizations, the Great Rivers organization felt pretty strongly that we needed to do some extra efforts to make sure that rural counties, rural residents don't get caught short, having a lack of access to behavioral health services. So one of the things that the 5 board members decided to do was to create a clinic to offer clinic services that could fill in the gaps in rural areas because it's a little bit more expensive. And so that resulted in the creation of a clinic which has offices here in Longview, and it's called the Community Integrated Health System or Services, CIHS. And the chief executive of that organization is Mark Bollinger, who had been the CEO of the BHO before the big changeover. One of the choices that clinic has made is to continue to provide mental health services for their former clients who are in jail. So these are people that they would be seeing before they come into jail. And in order to maintain a continuity of care, Marin has made available vacant office space. Well, it turns out the CIHS is an LLC rather than a freestanding government agency. And so the auditor, there's a question about whether that's a free gift of public facilities. And that's what we're trying to work out, because Marin is very supportive, and it makes a huge difference to have these people continue their treatment in terms of how the jail is operated. And I heard both from Mark Bollinger and then Marin about this concern. They want to keep that service going, but we don't want to get a finding, obviously, right, from the SAO. So Doug's involved, and when he comes on, he can explain a little bit more.
Your video.
Oh, and I do need to get my video on. Sorry about that.
No.
Just to add on to that, it will kind of help us and guide us through continuing leases with agencies like the community behavioral health programs. We do have a couple other agencies that have leases with us. Sean Rowe, our finance manager, and the team has been working on renewing leases, getting leases in place, doing an inventory of leases or lack thereof. So I think this will be really helpful, kind of bringing this to you, the board, and then also getting Doug's legal opinion.
Do you want to cover anything else while we wait for Doug? Okay.
For sure. We'll go ahead and move on to the WSDOT Lexington Bridge signal. That's Susan Eugenius.
Good morning, Commissioners. On your agenda tomorrow is an agreement with WSDOT for them to replace the signal controllers on Lexington Bridge and the I-5 off ramps, and then at the intersection of Lexington Bridge Drive and SR 411. This is necessary because we are about to go out for our overlay project. We've put off Lexington Bridge Drive for several years because of these issues with their. So the existing signals have the loops in the pavement, and in order for us to do our pavement rehabilitation in that particular location, we need to grind it. And if we ground out the pavement, we destroy the loops. WSDOT is in the process of switching over from loop control to radar detection on all their signals. We talked to WSDOT. They are willing to do the work for us, purchase the equipment, do the work for $39,000 with a slight escalation in there in case their labor runs over. We looked at the price of just replacing the loops, and we would have to go out for bid, and we have the unreliability of it coming back, and we're anticipating over $40,000 to replace them. So we thought moving forward, it was in our best interest to go ahead and replace them now and then move forward. So that is what this agreement is I have in front of you.
So I'm curious, how old is that bridge?
So it went in, I believe, I'm going to guess about 2007.
And it's set time to grind the asphalt at both ends of the bridge?
So it is, yes, that asphalt is starting to deteriorate quite rapidly, especially around the on and the off ramps have been in longer than that. And then the intersection itself gets a lot of heavy traffic. Lexington Bridge Drive has the highest ADT of all the county roads in the county.
Is that curable? No, what's that acronym you used?
I'm sorry, what? Average
Average
daily
daily.
traffic, yes.
Okay.
And there's quite a bit of truck traffic that uses
Yeah.
that route.
I was gonna say, it's a lot of big truck too,
Yes.
dump trucks and other stuff.
Yeah, I thought they would do that by the pounds, if you will. So 100 small cars is nothing like two
Yeah.
big logging trucks.
Right, and I don't have the percentage in front of me, but when we do our traffic counts, we do have a truck percentage in the count. I just don't have that information with me. It's something I can find out for you.
And this technology you're going to is a newer technology.
Yes,
And obviously, once you do an overlay again, then you're not in a situation because you're not messing with the
Right.
loops.
we're
Yeah.
done with this. We won't have to touch it again.
Okay.
And I like that question. Is that a smart technology under too? So they'll be able to communicate to the light?
I don't know if they have them set up that they can communicate with them in this area. I know this is, excuse me, the traffic signal they're using throughout the state. And I know they have the intelligent transportation system in the Seattle and the Vancouver area. I'm not aware of them using it in Longview, Kelso.
I might stop by and chat with you about that. I always find that interesting.
Susan, you mentioned in your description the off and on ramps of I-5. The loops are just at the intersection with 411.
There are also loops at the intersection of the northbound off ramps because there's a traffic signal there.
Oh.
And then they have approach loops to each of them. So especially to the 411 portion, they have the ones right at the intersection and then they have ones prior to it. I'm not 100% of the spacing, but they do have ones further away so that they can sense people coming.
Yeah.
So if they're still sensing cars, they'll keep traffic going, signal on longer.
Is there a tendency for WSDOT to convert their radar equipment, turning them into speed traps?
Not that I'm aware of. I do not believe that they can use them as speed traps in general locations. I know that they were just considering, and I believe the governor just signed it, the ability to put up traffic cameras in work zones that they can now issue tickets on, but that we do not have that ability in other locations.
And could this also be used for tolling to go across the bridge? We've never had that before, but if it's a radar, folks up in Puget Sound are pretty well used to, they've got a transponder and
So these radar are more of a sensor. I know most of the radar that take the pictures of the license plates are mounted up high, where this will be mounted adjacent to the roadway.
I think, Dennis, your implied admonition is spot on. Anything you do or approve today can and will be used against you in the future.
Well, we know as we get closer and closer to a theoretically a fossil-free fuel, they have to be able to keep track. And that'll be transponders with an electric vehicle. So what I didn't know is is this a stealth way to get that introduced into rural areas that aren't exactly impressed with the whole idea of all electric?
Not that I'm aware of. This is a similar technology to what Longview uses.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. Only because Longview did try the radar speed cameras.
Yeah.
And that was definitely more headaches than it was worth.
Any other questions? Good. Go ahead. Go ahead.
This is probably a little bit inappropriate, but a lot of times I feel that the traffic management is typically not orientated with the efficiency for the public. And there have been this technology for sophisticated communication to help traffic flow. Like at 2 a.m, why are you at a red light? Stopped.
No, I get it.
And
Yeah.
it goes on, and the only reason is that the government cannot monetize that while they can monetize a red light camera or a speed trap. And so if they really cared about efficiency, they wouldn't have you standing there consuming fuel in a traffic jam.
Yeah. Okay. I see Doug's on, so we might, thanks, Susan. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
So I've got a request pass through with, pardon me, Commissioner Weber regarding allowance of community integrated health services to utilize jail space without charge. I have some issues with that. So I thought I'd defer to the board to make a decision. Little backdrop, Community Integrated Health Services LLC is a, I'm not sure what it is. It's an it's an LLC that Great Rivers carved off. It's not a public LLC. It is overseen by a governance of medical doctors. It operates a separate budget, separate resolutions on operation. It pays various private and public entities for use of their space. Most of them are private. City of Waco in Pacific County is the exception, where it actually pays the city for use of city space. So my question really is, whether it's up to the board, whether you let them use jail space for free. I'm troubled because they're not really, in my opinion, a public entity. They're an offshoot of a public entity, but Great Rivers is a public corporation. They're doing sort of what they're going to do. I'm not sure why they created Community Integrated Health Services LLC in the manner they did, but I'm sure there's any number of reasons that are possible, whether it's grant monies or liability or simply arm's length operation of a what basically a health business separate from the Great Rivers public entity created by statute. It's not for me to guess, but the bottom line is this is something for discussion by the board. So you have it. I'm not sure if we pay them for their services or what services they provide the county over at the jail.
Just speaking for Marin, from our conversations, they do provide services to inmates. Commissioner Weber kind of disclosed that in the beginning, that they work with individuals before, and then it sounds like during their stay at the jail. So the close proximity, which is Courthouse Square, that's where they're currently located, which is that building that's, if you're looking at the jail, to the left of the jail. They utilize one office space there. So it's my understanding that they provide services to the jail, and it's my understanding that they get reimbursed in some method. It's not, to my knowledge, by the county, but there is some reimbursement there.
That's my guess too, is that that this is part of a funded mental health process by the state and federal government. So they're compensated and they don't actually bill the clientele, but nevertheless, how they operate is a reimbursable expense by them. I went back and looked at their budgets the last several years. So they basically pay off vouchers for use of utilities, office space, staffing, personnel, whatever. And presupposing all of those expenses are reimbursed through some type of funding. Which then begs the question, I don't believe, at least in my analysis, there's not a way for the county to simply offset, those services, because they're already compensated. So it's not a matter of the county trading services for services. And they're not a public entity in the normal aspect of how they operate, that we would treat them as, for instance, City of Longview or whatever. And even then there would be an issue because arguably they're already compensated. So it's not a manner of which you can sort of trade services for services because they're already paid. The point of the RCW I've quoted to the board under Title 43 is to really segregate public entities' budgets so you don't have one entity basically subsidizing another through different tax sources, whether it's individual or some excise tax or some other type of tax. So the state directs that basically everybody operate off their own budget. In rare instances, you can get situations where you can trade service for service and reduce or modify how much is paid, but I just don't see that happening in this instance.
So Doug, I'm sure you know that under the rather arcane rules of Medicaid, anyone who is in custody does not qualify for Medicaid assistance. So they're temporarily suspended from their insurance. This clinic, even though they're being compensated for time before and after jail, continues the service without getting compensated for those who are in jail for, the 2 or 3, 4 or 5 days, whatever the short-term time is. And so they're not getting compensated for the service that they provide, but they believe that is in the best interest of the patient and ultimately best interest of the public. But again, I know that in our conversation, you had offered to contact the attorney that put together the LLC, but I don't know if you've been able to.
Well, actually, I didn't offer to contact him. He's free to contact me and make his best pitch. But, and again, it goes back to, I understand what they're doing. It still doesn't change the fact that this is an audible issue for the county providing what amounts to free office space to a private entity. At least an entity that operates under
for free service.
It doesn't matter. It's it'd be as if the county doesn't provide services, to Goodwill for handing out sandwiches. So, I do know, like I said, this entity, has vouchers that they provide payments to other entities for facilities. I would be, if they can give me an example of another county that gives them free
Yeah.
space and free access, I'd be interested in trying to figure out how they came to that decision.
When you do things like this, in the world I came from, we were always careful about if we adjusted payments or we adjusted different things, because once you did it for a period of time, then that's the way it was. It almost becomes, that's how it is. So
Customs
if
and
we-
culture.
yeah, so if we do this for what looks like a private entity here, do we expose ourselves to others?
Good question. Would, if, if Habitat for Humanity wanted to store lumber materials and supplies at one of your public workshops, because if they do good, they help resolve in some cases, help resolve the county's housing problem, and which the county itself can't otherwise do. And that's what you're talking about is really the slippery slope theory.
Yeah.
Is once you start down a pathway, is that a good pathway to start initially? And again, I can't answer that. This is really policy. All I'm saying is that if you're going to give them free space, there's no voucher system or offset I can provide you. You're just doing it. You can't memorialize it as saying 1 for 1 or 2 for 1, because it just doesn't fit the law.
So if we made a decision to do it, call it what it is, don't call it by a different name.
It is what it is. You're tendering them free office space.
Yeah. Questions?
I've said any number of times that we have a terribly complicated system. And I think what our council is offering us is a simplicity that helps us unwind where the real problems are.
Yeah.
So I would find it troublesome to proceed against council's advice on this. There's some issues where I know we're getting free services, but I happen to be one who doesn't believe there are free services. So somewhere, somehow, there's a group of people who are benefiting in some way. If not, it wouldn't be sustainable.
Yeah.
So
I'm pretty much along those lines too. I don't mind them having the office, but I think it needs to be a negotiated lease like we would with anybody else. I agree with Doug. This could be a slippery slope, and I don't think I would put the county into that.
Anything else? Okay, we will go ahead and move forward as we would with any other leased agency and start the negotiation process. Thank you.
Once again, that kind of fell in the laps of Public Works, even though it wasn't really a Public Works agenda item with no county manager in the past. I think that's who usually took care of the leases for a few years there, and we inherited that as an office. So just as Savannah mentioned earlier, Sean's been working a lot on these leases. There's some that's been expired. You'll probably see a rash of leases coming your way here in the next 6 months as we get caught up.
We can help you with that.
Yeah. And I'm certainly not against this service. I think, it provides some service. So I just want to treat them like we would anybody else.
Thank you.
actually, is there space available in the jail?
I don't know if, I think originally they reached out to us about Courthouse Square, about leasing space out there. And then, and I don't know if Marin's online to be able to answer that question, if there's actually space at the jail itself.
My understanding, talking to Marin, that there was some space available at the
Okay.
jail, unused right now, but
if I may interject, one of the options would be, because we've done this with the courts, is to provide an open space, but it would not be exclusive. In other words, we've done that with basically a staging area for some types of services that the courts use as well. And we've done that in the HOJ. So basically there's a room available with a desk and a chair. But that's it. It's basically a utility room. So to the extent that they would use that, they would probably have to sign off on a facilities use agreement with the understanding it's not their space. It's just an area that's open to any service provider that's visiting the jail. That's your
And
other option.
And by that, you mean that, say, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, if I walk away from the desk, somebody else can step in right then?
Correct. They've made space available for victims assistance, domestic violence, things of that nature. People to use a private area over the years. I don't know if they're still doing it, but they were doing it. And the theory being that it's a space open to facilitate court activities. So that would be your other option.
So
But
the
they
idea
can't-
would be.
They can't set up in there as a permanent space.
The idea would, for example, if Columbia Wellness decided to provide those free services, they could use the space as well. I mean, you wouldn't restrict it.
No. But again, they'd have to sign off an agreement, and basically it's like office sharing. Whatever you bring in, take back with you. So you might want to explore that option with them.
And would that be an option open to a vendor, any of the other vendors with whom we do business at the jail?
That would be up to Marin, because it comes down to, is this in line with jail security? So there'd probably be some type of screening process or decision making, and I defer to her on that. But I'm just letting you know that the court limited use of that space to specifically those entities which support court operations.
Okay, yeah, it starts to get a little hazy in my mind because, well, hard to define some things. These are essential and these aren't.
Sure.
Yeah, and then probably Marin is the one to whom I should address this, but maybe Mr. Weber knows the interaction between the health provider that we already have a rather extensive contract with in the jail versus this group. Is there how do we manage these interactions?
As my understanding is that the vendor we have for the jail only deals with them while they're in jail. And CIHS has made the choice of, it's those folks in jail who are their clients through Medicaid before they went into jail, they want to continue the treatment.
So we have a client who was under CHIS.
Right.
They ended up in jail. Now, at the moment, they are not under anything. When they come back out of jail, then CIHS is then able to charge before and after, but not in
Correct.
between.
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay. So the free service there is really a continuity to guarantee the continuity on the side of the provider. They're keeping the business going. On the side of the customer, they're keeping the attention and healthcare going.
Right.
I think I understand it.
And the side benefit is less chaos in the jails because you don't have, because the treatment's being made available.
Although I remember having quite a discussion with the one of the troubleshooters for the vendor. I don't remember his name. Probably anyhow. He was quite confident that he could cure a whole bunch of things in a short amount of time. Anyhow, that probably has nothing to do with anything.
Well, did we make it clear enough or confusing enough? You kind of know where you're going?
We can move forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Doug.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Doug.
You're welcome. Bye now.
Building and planning next. Tracy Jackson has some miscellaneous items, and we also have requested 2 executive sessions for building and planning. We're done here today.
Okay.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tracy Jackson, Director of Building and Planning. Just giving you a heads up, I received 2 applications from the planning manager position, internal candidates. So we'll be looking at those hopefully this afternoon if schedules allow. The Ridgeview subdivision is on next week for its non-contentious. It's up on Sidetown Road. I think there's about 10 lots, 2 acres apiece. Should be pretty straightforward on that one. If you want
Is
to
it,
talk
is
to
it
the-
on Sidetown Road or is it?
It's off. It's
Just
off.
off,
Yep.
it's, there's another street, Timber or something,
Timberline.
Timberline,
Yeah,
yeah.
Is it
okay.
where they did the logging?
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So if you would like the planner to come up and talk to the board prior, I can bring him up. That's up to the board. Let me know or if you want to meet individually with him too, that's fine. Just giving the board a heads up.
Is it taking over any wetlands?
No, it is not.
Okay.
I haven't seen any comments or have anybody.
Yeah, it's been really quiet on that one.
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward. So I'm hopeful it's good for the board, but if you need any clarification or if you want to talk to the planner that worked on it.
And it's relatively small number of homes, isn't it?
Yeah, I
Like
think there's-
dozen maybe, or
I was gonna say, I
8,
think there's 12.
12?
Yeah.
Well, it was a little interesting. It was homes and then a commercial building.
Yes.
So not that there's anything against that. It just seemed a little different.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then just to let the board know that the third party Accela contract we have is working out fantastic. We're making some leaps and bounds and really streamlining some processes. And the work that they're charging us is nothing what they're providing to us. I mean, we're very impressed with what they've got, their service so far. So just letting the board know. That's all I have besides the 2 executive sessions.
So I was reviewing some emails this weekend between grandson time. And I think there was a message for some wording for the findings for why we took away that access road.
The secondary access road, yes.
Were you able to come up with appropriate wording or?
They were looking for the board's reasoning of why it was denied, the secondary access.
Okay.
We can help with that if you'd like.
I mean, it seemed to me, I think we were comfortable because the number of buildable lots was reduced from the original plan, that it wasn't worth destroying wetlands to provide that access. The public safety didn't outweigh
Yeah.
the need to preserve.
That was what I wanted to bend your ear a little bit on that.
We
because-
can, let's talk
it-
after this.
yeah,
Yep.
'cause
And
it-
then I'm going to bring
I-
Mike Wilson up maybe tomorrow afternoon and we can give you some more clarity on that after I
help-
think you and
'cause I
I have
don't
that
mind-
discussion.
drafting something together and then my colleagues get a chance to see it and.
Yep.
And send out.
Let's have an additional conversations
Yeah,
about that.
yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Good.
That's all I have right now.
Okay.
I'll see you in a bit.
Question.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Art.
You thought you were going to escape, huh?
No,
Actually, this may not be a question for you, but I don't know to whom we should address it. I think if we tally up all the developments ongoing now, we've got quite a number of houses coming online. So it's typical of booms and busts that we underbuild and we overbuild. And do you have a feeling what the demand for housing is? I don't know how you would have that. I'm not sure who would have that.
Yeah.
But things are critical in the sense that as long as everyone has a house, there's not a problem. But if you're short one house, then that is a problem. But we're talking about how many hundreds of homes now?
There's a lot, and there's a lot in the horizon right now. We have a lot of preliminary approval letters right now, a lot. I don't have that magic wand or that crystal ball. However, everything that is being built is being sold and occupied or occupied. So those apartments out in Lexington, we have the first 3 buildings ready for approval right now, or they can be occupied, and they're already being rented, and almost all of them are being rented at this point. So as soon as they build, they are being rented. So there's a ton of demand right now out there, and I've been watching real estate. I do anyways, but more so lately, and everything that is up for sale is selling. I mean, they get some weird reduction of, but I think it's a strategy that the realtors are using. However, everything is selling. So I don't know this boom, how long it will last, but
Yeah. The prices have come down on housing.
a little bit, yes.
That kind of tells me a little bit.
Yeah.
But then I think it's countering the interest rates too. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of
It's
a
still
flip or flop.
a crystal ball that's hard to see. One of the things I used to monitor is how long a house sat on the market.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if that started to grow, then you start having little concerns, but it's a tough thing to predict. I agree.
Yeah, there isn't anything we can or should do. That's a builder, is a private builder trying to decide what it's
Yeah.
doing. But in
Mhm.
terms of, there are times when you might feel like you want to be very lenient on a setback. And there are other times when you say, no, we gotta, there's no need to sacrifice the setback. I
So-
don't know
Yeah.
where we are in that.
Yeah.
Did that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So one of the thoughts that I had is that the whole issue of affordable housing is eventually addressed as the supply goes up. And people who are renting make those choices. They've been kind of cooped up in a tired apartment that they're paying too much for. And now there's a supply that they can afford to move up. And so that'll force the landlords that have older models, they're not going to be able to fill vacancies charging as much. And so
Yep.
that makes it more affordable. It's not something we regulate at all. It's
Yep.
got to be the free market. And that's all negated every time somebody from Clark County comes up and rents,
Yep.
because they're competing with Clark County prices, which are even higher than ours.
Well,
So-
and just offhand, I know a lot of people that sold their houses when the market was so high this last year, where they weren't really doing inspections. They were taking it as is. People were leaving very, very quickly. And most of those people have been renting. And so now they're looking for their next home or forever home. So we have a lot of that situation still going on
Yeah.
too. They're waiting for the prices to completely drop, which they really haven't. And so they're down, but they're not dropped.
So I appreciate Mr. Mortensen bringing this up, because about 3, maybe 4 years ago, I requested an emergency declaration on housing. Well, I'll rely on your recommendation when it's time to kind of repeal that emergency declaration. And it makes sense. We've had such an increase in the supply. That kind of closes that loop, I think.
Yeah, I think that was repealed a year ago now.
Oh, did we already repeal it?
Yeah.
I think you did.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay.
Anything else?
Nothing for me.
Thanks, Tracy. Then why don't we just touch base and we'll get together with Mike?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Thank you.
We'll come up and introduce our new maintenance mechanic and also talk about the bid award for the HHS's roof.
Good morning, Commissioners. Will Towsett, Facilities Manager. First of all, I'd like to introduce Pedro Dominion as our newest maintenance employee. I think he's going to be a great asset for us. He's a little bit about him. He was born and raised in Oahu, Hawaii. He has 5 kids, which he loves to spend time with. He likes to do anything on wheels, cars, motorcycles, trips, road trips. From his previous employee, he worked at a brewery down Portland, and he got lots of safety awards. And I think he'll be a great asset for us.
Awesome.
That about touch it up?
Yeah.
All right.
Welcome
you.
aboard.
Welcome aboard. Yeah. You can't go wrong with motorcycle guys, just saying.
Okay, and then next up, I have a bid award coming for the Health Department roof. It's a roof we've needed to replace for some time. The low bidder was CNR Homes and Construction. We haven't done work with them in the past, so last week we had a staff meeting where it was a pre-award meeting. Asked them some questions, and after that meeting, I feel confident they'll be able to do the job, no problem.
Okay, because I was looking at that this morning and I go, man, there's quite a bit of disparity there. Not just in total cost, but in the material costs where they were different. I go, are they sure they can do this?
Yep,
Yeah.
and we asked all those questions in that meeting. At the end of it, I think not only myself, I think we all felt pretty confident.
Have we looked at some of their work, maybe?
Well, we reached out to them, to find out some past work history in the area, and most of their work has been done in Oregon. OSU, University of Oregon, they've done a lot of work for universities and state agencies.
Okay.
So we all had the same issues when we saw the bids come in, and that's why we decided, we usually don't do a pre-bid or pre-award meeting, but this one here, we felt there was a need to do that. And so we had a list of questions we went through with them as a project coordinator and as a manager. We had a few other people from our public works team there also asking questions. And at the end, we felt comfortable to move forward with them. Yes.
Okay.
So on your
It's
view,
always scary to see that big discrepancy. And we'll see.
Yeah.
so with an Oregon company, do their bids include sales tax, or is that something staff always adds on?
They're now established in Washington. They initially were based out of Oregon. Now they have a branch here in Washington. So we
Vancouver.
asked about the prevailing
Are they out of
wage.
Vancouver then, or?
I believe it's east of the mountains, Spokane.
Oh.
I think it was Spokane. But we asked about prevailing wage, all that fun stuff with them, the sales tax when we asked our questions.
Not Castle Rock.
No, not Castle Rock. CNR, I see where you get it from.
So, question, how big was the spread between this successful bidder and the next closest one? Percentage wise would be a good number.
About 33%.
Oh,
Okay, so are you anticipating a lot of change orders?
We asked that question and right now we're saying no, but we do anticipate, up to the normal 10%, but but we stress that with them. That's the main reason we asked the questions to them and had the pre-award meeting, because we didn't feel comfortable just having a company come in we've never even met before, with no history with the county, and being that big of a discrepancy. So yeah, if they're all within 5 or 10%, we'd probably feel a bit more comfortable, but actually between them and the highest bidder, they're almost half the price.
Yeah. Did some of these cost clauses can be included? So for me, a legitimate change order is when we change our minds.
Correct.
And that means we've got to specify things adequately. And that puts the burden on the supplier also, that he says, yes, I understand the job.
Correct. And also just change of conditions. We're taking off the old roof and rebuilding, correct? So when they dive in there, we anticipate they're going to find certain things, but maybe they find rot in certain spots that we did not anticipate. And that would cost and be a change order on their part.
And
But-
do we have the drawings for that building?
Yes.
Yeah. Art was reading my mind because we've just been down that road.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. Well,
So it's on the motion item tomorrow. So we'll be available for more questions. It'll be for public comment and your comments tomorrow.
what's the, when I did the roof on my house, I could have spent a lot or a little depending on what technology I decided or what final finish. This is in place for place.
No, we're replacing it with a new TPO roof. Right now, it's kind of that torch down material. The job spec was written by a previous architect. We did ask that in the pre-award meeting. It includes a new inner hatch which that roof doesn't have. It's a safety hazard. So right now, currently to access that roof or any mechanical equipment, filters, you need a long ladder and you kind of come up under the little awning and climb up. So an inner hatch will be safer for maintenance employees, anybody that accesses that roof. Also a safety railing is included in that job spec as well. But it's going from kind of a torch down, older technology to now the TPO.
So just to make sure I understood this, somewhere inside the building, there'll be a pull down ladder of some kind.
Yep, correct.
Good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
Okay, thanks. Need, how long do you need, Mike?
5 and 5? 5 and
5 and
5. So
5?
one's contract negotiations, the other one is potential litigation, I believe, are the two.
Okay, 5 and 5.
The board is extending the executive session regarding potential litigation an additional 10 minutes until 12:01 PM.
We're back and I think we'll move. Go
Okay,
ahead.
commissioners, following our executive session today, I have a residual circumstance since 1999. The applicant is asking for their one-time current balance of fees to be waived based on the information that I've presented to the board.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve that motion.
Any other discussion on it?
I will probably vote no, just I'm a little concerned about going against corporation's advice, but I'm sympathetic, but
Call for the vote. Those in favor, signify with aye. Aye. Opposed?
opposed.
Motion passes 2-1.
Okay, thank you. And commissioners, I ask that you give me permission to authorize me to work with our Cowlitz Conservation District and work on our voluntary stewardship program with a possible cost split for the program, VSP and Cowlitz to work on a split for funding for the 2023 into 2025 year.
So move.
It's been moved. Any other further discussion?
Just other than the Cowlitz Conservation District has proven itself time and time again to be thoroughly knowledgeable in working with small farmers and a lot of natural restoration programs. So glad to be able to enter a partnership with them.
Me too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Call for the vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Passes.
Thank you, commissioners.
Did we have anything else? Miscellaneous for the day? We're all good? Okay. I don't see anything online. We'll close this. Thank you.